Secretary Miller, on the second page of your written testimony, you had talked about breaking the cycle of poverty. So a lot of my questions will be geared towards that. I know there are already existing work requirements for certain programs, and you had mentioned the EARN program, the Employment and Retention Network program in your testimony. What I want to ask about is you had mentioned that you wanted to change some of the job training and education in that program. What exactly are you looking to do, and when do you think it will be ready to roll out?
Sure. So what we talk about is changing, essentially redesigning our programs. EARN and Work Ready are two programs where we get TANF dollars to try to help people get to work. And I think what I referenced in the testimony is that, last year we had a lot of conversation about Medicaid work requirements, and I think that really prompted us to go back and take a really deep dive into our existing employment and training programs and say, how are we doing? And when we looked at EARN in particular, although Work Ready wasn't much better, but when we looked at EARN outcomes, what we found is we are not helping people get to long-term successful outcomes. I think because we have an existing work requirement in TANF, we have focused too much on just job placement and not focused much on addressing barriers that people face and acknowledging that we have education and training issues with this population that mean that getting to long-term outcomes will be difficult if we don't focus on that. So rather than focusing sort of solely on job placement, what we want to do is redesign these programs so they're, first of all, addressing the barriers that people face, whether those are childcare barriers, transportation barriers, whatever those are. On an individualized basis, we put together a plan and say, how do we address all those barriers up front? And then how do we, in a more meaningful way, really engage you in the workforce system?
Are you able to share any of the details of that plan with us today, or is it still a work in progress?
It's still a work in progress. What we want to do is eventually we will be putting out later this year a request for application because we want to do a procurement. We're going to take, I think we have a total of about $75 million in these two programs. We want to take all but about $12 million of that back in-house and do a procurement with that money to move to more of an intensive case management model so that we really are delivering individualized services. Last year, as we were really delving into our programs, we sat down with a lot of our TANF recipients, and one of the things we heard from them, and it just confirmed the outcomes we saw in our data, is that we're not looking at people as individuals. We kept hearing that we have a one-size-fits-all plan, and we're not really helping people address their barriers and really putting them in a position where they can have successful long-term outcomes, and that's what we want to change.
If we could come up with a way to provide opportunities for these people. I know in your testimony yesterday you said that these people want to work. If there's a way that you can partner with DCED or even PennDOT, I mean, PennDOT, I know in my neck of the woods has had trouble finding CDL drivers. I think that would be helpful. Possibly partnering with the trades, doing a public-private partnership with some of the businesses where they can get express certifications to immediately go in, whether they have a college degree or not. Programs like that, I think, would be very helpful, and it would do more than just check the box. It would help break that cycle of poverty that we're all trying to break here.
That's exactly right. And I think when I mentioned the redesign of our employment and training programs, that's just one piece of really a number of initiatives that we have ongoing. And to your point about working with the private sector and potentially the public sector with, like Department of Transportation, I think if we can do a better job engaging with employers so we have a better idea of what are the skills that they need, and we can help make sure we get our folks those skills and then help educate them about some of the barriers our folks experience, we can get creative about figuring out how we can open up a workforce for employers who really have gaps they need to fill.
Right, and one idea I want to throw out to you before my time's up is in regards to childcare. In some of the child care facilities back in the West, in Washington, Allegheny County, predictability for employment and staff has always been a big issue. Would you consider forming, I know for infants it's different with the ratios, but in order to provide some sort of stability to the people who actually work there, some sort of county level wide, I guess it would be employment pool, I guess would be the best way to explain it, where the centers would have a pool of people to pull from. They'd sign a one-year contract with them. It'd kind of be like a job placement type program. This way, it gives the centers predictability, it gives the employees predictability, and you might actually be able to take more people on a daily basis. So if you have any comments on that, I would certainly welcome that.
If we could follow up with you and talk a little bit more about that, I think we'd like to learn more and figure out if there's something there we could explore.